to make profit.
As many countries are taking advantage
yes,
of.
everybody
it's been a big
looking
political issue here in the U.S. this past year.
Yes, so it's not only U.S. losing job to China, Taiwan the same.
So how is Taiwan going to manage its relationship with China moving forward? You've got this humongous gorilla, China, with how many billions of people?
12 billion.
It's massive. Whereas Taiwan is just a tiny little island, but is considered a thriving economy. But is it possible for Taiwan to become more independent, given the economic interdependence of the two countries? Not to mention, even though Taiwan is politically separate, but there are major threats currently pointing at Taiwan.
Yeah. Taiwan only have around 23 million population. Mainland China has 1 billion population. But we trust our Taiwanese ability to survive, because you can see from 1971, we withdrew our membership from the United Nations, and in 1979, we lost the diplomatic relations with the United States. And
but now that's the diplomatic relations with the United States. How would you explain?
We can say that everything is like before, except we don't have the name of an embassy or a consulate or the formal diplomatic relations with the United States.
For example, your current title is the Taipei office opposed to the Taiwan consulate.
Yes, we used to use North American Coordinating Council in USA. Now we're using the name Taipei Representative, Taipei Economic and Cultural Office in Miami and in other states. But we don't have the formal name of consulate.
So let's talk a little bit about the U.S. and Taiwan's economic and trade relationship. I believe we have some slides that we can bring up on the screen here in a second. But what do you think the best opportunities for U.S. businesses are in Taiwan?
I think the best opportunity depends on the exchange of the visits and enforcement of the trade relations. As you know, Taiwan is the 8th and the 9th of the export and import partner of the United States.
The 8th and 9th import, yeah, I saw that, and I think we have some slides that we can bring up.
We are number 17 trade nation in the world.
In terms of U.S.-Taiwan relations, it's interesting to see that of $4.3 billion of Taiwan foreign direct investment, Taiwan invested over $577 million in the U.S. That's interesting, and I understand that the majority of it went into the banking and financial sector.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, because in Taiwan, the servicing industry is almost 70% of our total GDP.
Right, and in exchange, the U.S. invested approximately $600 million in Taiwan, and also in the banking and industry. But the U.S.'s investments, I understand, are also very prominent in the technology sector.
Yes.
Electronics, I think we have the next graph will have some of a better display. The majority goes into the banking and finance sector, electronics, services, and then we have transportation and I guess retail was the second to the last one. So some of the companies that are invested in Taiwan and are prominent include HP, IBM, Intel. What are some of the other companies?
Like the food chain Costco, and you have Burger King from Florida State.
Yeah, lots of franchises. Yeah, right here
right.
in Miami, we've got the Burger King headquarters. Well, that's interesting to see that there's such a dynamic trade partnership between the U.S. and Taiwan. A lot of us don't really think about that. However, because of the hotly contested issue of outsourcing of U.S. jobs, I imagine this is going to become a more prominent issue as U.S. companies and more citizens begin to look at manufacturing offshore. Do you think that this issue will impact U.S. and Taiwan relations in any way?
Yes, the best way is to enhance the real relations, the concrete relations between country and country. Like if the relations between Taiwan and U.S. in terms of the trade, investment, and other exchanges, then we will have a better foot to develop our relations.
But in terms of the controversy that is being discussed in great detail now in the U.S. about outsourcing U.S. jobs in Asia, do you think this will hurt or hinder relations with Taiwan, or do you think it's a way to improve the relations with Taiwan?
I don't think it will hurt relations with Taiwan and the United States. I think it's a trend because the businessmen always want to go to the place for invest for the cheaper cost. And as you know, in China, the labor cost is much lower than the United States in Taiwan. Even Taiwan also lose jobs to China.
Because of the lower labor.
Yeah, and other like environment standard, that kind of standards.
Right. So where do you think the best opportunities are today for U.S. businesses who are thinking about Asia as a business opportunity?
I think they can use Taiwan as a jumping board to the Southeast Asia and even China, because there are so many overseas Chinese business network. And if you can start in Taiwan, then you can reach Southeast Asia and also reach China if you don't directly go to China.
And what does Taiwan do? I mean, given that there are so many complications between the Taiwan and China relationship, can Taiwan really help a U.S. company enter into the China market?
I think yes, because we have the same language, same culture, or same ways of doing business. When you do a business in a country, not only in terms of the business law or a contract, you have to know something about their cultures. Yeah, or it's very important in the Chinese community if you do something in terms of personal relations.
Right. So do you think that the business culture of Taiwan is more similar to the U.S. than it is in China?
I think in both ways. We are similar to United States in some aspects, but in the other aspects, we are more like in mainland China.
Right. You mentioned something very interesting regarding culture. I understand that there are over 1,000 different dialects of Chinese, and that how do people communicate with each other?
We communicate officially by the Mandarin Chinese, but in Taiwan we also have Taiwanese or Hakkanese. But the best thing is we only have one single written language that you can communicate with that. And of course, both sides, the official language is Mandarin, so everybody normally will learn the Mandarin Chinese.
Now, I have an interesting question for you, and we discussed this briefly before coming on to the show. Education. Explain to me how it is that the Asians just do so well when they come to the United States, where English isn't even their first language. They go to universities, and I like to think that I was rather intelligent in some of my classes, but let me tell you, let's hypothetically, I'd score a 90, and all the Asians would get 100s on their exams. What's going on here?
The education is deemed very high value in the Eastern or Oriental cultures. So every family, their parents always put as much as their resource into their children's education. And we used to say that you can find your beautiful wife from your books, so you can find your fortune from your books. So everybody is studying hard for the future, for themselves and for their families.
I think that's very different, unfortunately, in comparison to the U.S. education system.
I think basically it should be the same.
Let's move back to China. And there was an announcement in the papers just recently that China's doing some tricky things. I understand that they just offered a $112 million aid package to Dominica, where you've previously served as, what were you, charge d'affaires?
Yeah, I was charge d'affaires in Dominica, Commonwealth of Dominica.
So why do you think China's doing this?
I think the main purpose is they want to block our international space.
And Domenico just severed diplomatic relations with Taiwan.
Yes, just several days ago. Yes, and now
Well, that's
we
a
only
problem,
have,
isn't it?
No, we think.